I'd like to welcome you back for another study in Bible reading. As you know, these studies are designed to serve as signposts for your journey through the Bible. This is the 34th study in the series, and we're looking at the book of 2 Kings. According to the chronological order of Bible books, this is the 14th book to appear along the timeline. The period covered by the book is around 300 years. There's 25 chapters, and it takes approximately 1 hour and 55 minutes to read in a single sitting, which I'd encourage you to do. Just as the book of 1 Kings is a divinely inspired piece of literature, so also is the book of 2 Kings. That is, God breathed out His words through its author. The words of this book, therefore, are the words of God. They're able to make us wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Christ Jesus. And they're profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, and for instruction in righteousness, that we might be matured in the faith, thoroughly or perfectly furnished unto all good works. Now, if we believe Jeremiah is the author of 1 Kings, then it's certain he is the author of 2 Kings. We know this because the books of 1 and 2 Kings in the Hebrew Bible are one book. However, in the 3rd century BC, a group of scholars translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek, known as the Septuagint, during which time they divided Kings into 2 books. And then, in the 4th century AD, Jerome retained this twofold division when he translated the Bible into Latin. And then, in the 16th and 17th centuries, those who translated the Bible into English continued with the tradition, thus giving to us in our English Bibles 1st and 2nd Kings. However, if you combine the books, you'll discover the last chapter and verse of 1 Kings carries over to the first chapter and verse of 2 Kings. It's for this reason I hope you've been able to review my teaching notes on the book of 1 Kings, and have also been able to reread that book prior to this study. A little bit of review concerning the book of 1 Kings. In our previous study, we discovered the book of 1 Kings is the bridge which links the united kingdom with the divided kingdom. Allow me to remind you of the main structure of the book of 1 Kings. The first 11 chapters provide an overview of the last 40 years of the United Kingdom period, particularly under the reign of King Solomon. While the last 11 chapters provide an overview for the first 80 years of the divided kingdom period, and it gives a listing of several kings and prophets which served during those years. In order to provide a guide to the kings and prophets mentioned in the books of 1st and 2nd Kings, I have given to you a comparative chart. And this is an overview of all the kings and prophets which served the divided kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. The book of 1 Kings provides a record of the first 8 kings, together with 8 prophets, which reigned over the northern kingdom, with 5 kings and 1 prophet, which reigned over the southern kingdom at the bottom. whereas the book of 2nd Kings provides a record of the last 11 kings together with 6 prophets which reigned over the northern kingdom, with 15 kings and 10 prophets which reigned over the southern kingdom. Now, the Lord chose to record the history of these kingdoms in quite a unique fashion. In the last 11 chapters of 1 Kings, the history of the divided kingdom bounces back and forth between that of the northern kingdom and that of the southern kingdom. And these divisions, so long as they're kept in mind while reading through the book, will supply you a guide that will enable you to enjoy the riveting narrative which is sustained through the interplay of the kings and prophets for each of these 2 kingdoms. Now, since the books of 1st and 2nd Kings are a single book in the Hebrew Bible, we are right to expect the same pattern that we see in 1st Kings, the last 11 chapters of that book, will continue throughout the chapters of 2nd Kings. And in fact, that is what I'm going to show you now. I like to present to you the main structure for the book of 2nd Kings. And we're picking up in 2nd Kings where we left off in 1st Kings. Jumping straight into it, 2nd Kings chapter 1 through chapter 8 verse 15, we read about the kings of Israel, the northern kingdom. And there are 2 mentioned, Ahaziah and Jehoram. And then there are also 2 leading prophets during this time, Elijah and Elisha. Then, in chapter 8, verse 16 through verse 29, we read about the kings of Judah, those belonging to the southern kingdom. And there are 2 mentioned, Joram and Ahaziah. And there are no prophets recorded in these verses. Then, in chapter 9, verse 1 through chapter 10, verse 36, we read again about the kings of Israel, those belonging to the northern kingdom. And there is 1 mentioned, Jehu. And there is also 1 prophet, Elisha. Then, in chapter 11, verse 1 through chapter 12, verse 21, we read about the kings of Judah, those belonging to the southern kingdom. And there are 3. There is Athaliah, Jehoash, and Amaziah, with 1 prophet, Joel. Then, in chapter 13, verse 1 through verse 25, we read about the kings of Israel again, those belonging to the northern kingdom. And there are 3 mentioned, Jehoahaz, Joash, and Jeroboam the second, with 1 prophet, Elisha. Then, in chapter 14, verses 1 through 22, we read about the kings of Judah. There are 2 mentioned, Amaziah and Azariah, or Uzziah, and there are no prophets recorded in this passage. So for a quick overview of these chapters, you see once again the interplay between the kings of Israel and the kings of Judah. But the book continues in chapter 14, verses 23 through 29, where we read about the kings of Israel. There are 2, Jeroboam the second and Zechariah. And there are 3 prophets, Jonah, Amos, and Hosea. Then, in chapter 15, verses 1 through 7, we read about the kings of Judah. And there are 2, Azariah or Uzziah, and Jotham, with one prophet, Isaiah. Then in chapter 15, verses 8 through 31, we read about the kings of Israel, and there are 6 mentioned: Zechariah, Shallum, Menahem, Pekahiah, Pekah, Hoshea. And there are 2 prophets, Hosea and Isaiah. Then in chapter 15, verse 32 to chapter 16, verse 20, we have another record of the kings of Judah. And there are 3, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, with 2 prophets, Isaiah and Micah. Then in chapter 17, verse 1 to verse 41, we have the kings of Israel. And there's only one mentioned, Hoshea, and there is one prophet, Hosea. And this chapter also concludes the history for the kingdom of Israel. It's the end of that kingdom, where the Assyrian Empire conquered them, and no longer did that nation exist, nor would it ever be reorganized. It's the end of the kingdom of Israel. Which then brings us to the final part of the book, chapter 18 through 25, the kings of Judah, and there are 8 mentioned: Hezekiah, Manasseh, Josiah, Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Zedekiah. And for the prophets, there are a number of them. Isaiah, the prophetess Huldah. I'll just remove the so you can see the screen with the names of the prophets. There's Isaiah, the prophetess Huldah, Micah, Nahum, Zephaniah, Jeremiah, Habakkuk, Daniel, Ezekiel, and Obadiah. And in the 25th chapter, we also have the record of the end of the kingdom of Judah, with the Babylonian Empire conquering them. And so, this is the structure for the book of 2 Kings. There are 6 biographical sketches for the kings of Israel, and there are 6 biographical sketches for the kings of Judah. And of course, it's helpful to view the kings of both kingdoms aligned side by side, together with the prophets which ministered during that time. I mean, you can see where some of the kings overlap each other during their reigns. The kingdom of Israel came to an end during the reign of Hoshea. That's recorded, as I said, in chapter 17 of 2 Kings. They were conquered by the Assyrians. And likewise, the kingdom of Judah came to an end under the reign of Zedekiah, recorded in chapter 25 of 2 Kings, and they were conquered by the Babylonians. You'll notice there were 9 spoken prophets, highlighted by the color green, which ministered to the kingdom of Israel, while there were only 2 spoken prophets, which ministered to the kingdom of Judah. However, there were 4 written prophets. That is, they gave us a book in the Bible. There were 4 written prophets which ministered to the kingdom of Israel. That's highlighted by the color blue. Well, there were 10 written prophets that ministered to the kingdom of Judah. Now, these details may be seen more clearly if I transition the notes back to the chronological order of Bible books. And just to expand the top part of the chart, you'll notice the kingdom of Israel was in existence. That's this one here. The kingdom, the northern kingdom, was in existence for 256 years before it was conquered by the Assyrians. And there were three prophets that wrote a book of the Bible which ministered to that people: Jonah, Amos, and Hosea. The kingdom of Judah, on the other hand, the southern kingdom, they were in existence for 308 years before they were conquered by the Babylonians. And there were 7 written prophets, those that gave us a book of the Bible, which ministered to that people: Joel, Isaiah, Micah, Nahum, Zephaniah, Jeremiah, and Habakkuk. The other 3 prophets that we read of in the book of 2 Kings, that would be Daniel, Ezekiel, and Obadiah. They actually ministered mainly to the people of Judah, to these people here, the southern kingdom, during the 70-year exile in Babylon. Now, these details should be firmly grasped in the mind's eye, as it will be very difficult to appreciate these prophetical books when it comes time to read them if we don't have a knowledge of the history surrounding the time in which those prophets lived. The main thing I'm wanting you to see, according to the chronological order of Bible books, is that the books of 1st and 2nd Kings lays out the historical backdrop for these 10 prophetical books listed above. Now, having given these overviews for the kings, 1st and 2nd Kings, for the prophets recorded in the books, I wish to take a few minutes and rehearse with you the demise of the 2 kingdoms. You see, there are certain events recorded in the Old Testament which are given special attention because of their consequential significance. Case in point, take for instance the creation of the world, the fall of man, the worldwide flood during the days of Noah, the destruction of Babel and the scattering of the people and the confusion of languages, the giving of the law to Moses on Mount Sinai. These are monumental events recorded in the Old Testament. And among these great events belong the defeat and destruction of these 2 kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. Let's take a look first at the kingdom of Israel and its demise. The doom of the kingdom of Israel had been predicted for centuries prior to its destruction. The prophets of the Lord warned the people of divine judgment in light of their sin and rebellion. The 19 kings of that kingdom were wicked men. They did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they led the people of their kingdom into the same degradation of sin and iniquity. It therefore pleased the Lord, when the fullness of time had come for judgment, to raise up the Assyrian Empire to conquer and destroy the kingdom of Israel. The record of this awful event is given to us in 2 Kings chapter 17. And I'm going to read for you verses 7 through 23. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill, and under every green tree, and there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen, whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. And they served idols, whereof the Lord had said unto them, Ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, Turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers, that did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity, and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them, that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. There is none left but the tribe of Judah only. Also Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord, and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. They've never returned. The Jewish people belonging to the kingdom of Israel, as I've just said, have never returned to Samaria or to anywhere. They were scattered and lost forever. This was and is the end of the northern kingdom of Israel. And you know, a similar fate awaited the kingdom of Judah. Although the Lord blessed Judah with 5 good kings, Yet the other 15 monarchs were as wicked as those of the nation of Israel, the kingdom of Israel. They did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they led the people of their kingdom into sin. Like Israel, the people of Judah were warned by the prophets of God of coming judgment. The final part of that judgment fell during the reign of Zedekiah. It pleased the Lord to raise up the Babylonian Empire to conquer the people of Judah, to destroy Jerusalem, the capital. The record of this dreadful event is promised by the Lord in 2 Kings chapter 21. I'll read for you verses 10 through 15. And the Lord spake by his servants the prophets, saying, Because Manasseh king of Judah hath done these abominations, and hath done wickedly above all that the Amorites did, which were before him, and hath made Judah also to sin with his idols. Therefore thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Behold, I am bringing such evil upon Jerusalem and Judah, that whosoever heareth of it, both his ears shall tingle. And I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria, and the plummet of the house of Ahab. And I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipeth a dish, wiping it, and turning it upside down. And I will forsake the remnant of mine inheritance, and deliver them into the hand of their enemies. And they shall become a prey and a spoil to all their enemies, because they have done that which was evil in my sight, and have provoked me to anger, since the day their fathers came forth out of Egypt, even unto this day. What a terrible picture is painted by the Lord of his judgment upon Judah. You know, in many ways, the record of Israel and Judah's descent into darker shades of wickedness is comparable to our own day. And if you'll give me just a few moments, I'd like to make a relevant application. Just observe how quickly the Judeo-Christian ethos of Western culture has eroded. Have we not now reached a breaking point in society where the works of unrighteousness are held forth as virtuous, while the works of righteousness are condemned as evil? Now, don't think, my dear friends, that what you see around you today is something new on the scene of human history. The same darkness of our day overshadowed the kingdoms of Israel and Judah in days of antiquity. Did not Isaiah himself prophesy at that time, Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet, and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes, and prudent in their own sight. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, and men of strength to mingle strong drink, which justify the wicked for reward, and take away the righteousness of the righteous from him. And you see, it appears the Western world is on the brink of a similar judgment God brought upon Israel and Judah. I do fear, my dear friends, the days ahead will be darker than they are now, and I suspect there will fall upon the Western world, even during our lifetime, a judgment from God, the likes of which has not been experienced for the past several generations. Henceforth, The books of 1st and 2nd Kings is a sobering read, not only as it relates to the Jewish people in a bygone age, but also as it relates to the Western world in our current time. And I must point out that as dark as these times were, there was nevertheless light at the end of the tunnel. For the story does not end with the last chapter of 2nd Kings. You see, the story of the Jewish people belonging to the kingdom of Judah that had been taken captive by the Babylonians, this story continues. Here, the kingdom of Judah, it continues. They did return to Jerusalem. They rebuilt the temple, they rebuilt the city, and they were reorganized with a national identity. And that is what the remaining books of the Old Testament record. The books of Daniel, Ezekiel, Obadiah, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. I say this to you because there is light at the end of the dark tunnel. It is not all darkness and gloom. Indeed, we will feel there is only darkness and gloom when we read 1st and 2nd Kings. They are heavy books to read. But we must remember this is not the end of the story. It's not the end of God's master plan for the ages. The Messiah, I will remind you, had not yet come into the world, and therefore God would keep his promise and the covenants he made with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and David. He would preserve the Jewish people as a nation until the fullness of time had come, when he would send forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem his people that are under the law. Now, that's the bright hope to look forward to as you're reading through the books of 1st and 2nd Kings. While I'm on the subject of the people mentioned in the book of 2nd Kings, I should say something about the characters of the book, and I like to align the characters against the backdrop of sovereign grace. There are at least 15 people numbered among God's elect, in addition to an unknown number of an unnamed prophets. Some of these persons were Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, Jonah, Huldah, Jehoshaphat, Josiah, Hezekiah. There are then at least 25 names among the non-elect, and again, in addition to an innumerable bunch of others. But among these names were Ahab, Jezebel, Jeroboam, Athaliah, and Jehu. And then the vast majority of names in the book we're just unsure. I have a count of almost 225,000 of those people. And finally, there are 2 elect angels that are recorded in the book. One is mentioned at the beginning of the book, and the other towards the end. And I'm going to draw this study now to a close, but before I do, and I'm going to encourage you to read this book, I just want to remind you that the lives and testimonies of the men and women recorded in the books of the Bible, they had very similar stories to you and me. They will have encountered the same sort of troubles, trials, tribulations, disappointments, discouragements, failures, and setbacks as ourselves. And likewise, they will have enjoyed the same sort of freedoms, comforts, blessings, joys, encouragements, and victories as ourselves. And this is especially true of those men and women who had been regenerated by the Spirit of God. And so, I say to you, don't read the books of the Bible. Don't read the book of 2 Kings as if its history and testimonies and biographies is unrelated to yourself. You may easily walk in their shoes, and I believe you can find great comfort and instruction by walking with those men and women and sharing, sympathizing, empathizing in their experiences. Well, this brings us to the end of our study on the book of 2 Kings, and I trust you will make the time to read the book over the next couple of weeks, and then we will hopefully be looking at 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Until then, I like to wish upon you every blessing of the Lord in your journey with Him.